dips the rocky highland of Sleuthwood in the lake. There lies a leafy island where flapping herons wake the drowsy water rats. There we've hid our fairy vats, full of berries and of the reddest stolen cherries. Come away, O human child, to the waters and the wild, with a fairy hand in hand, for the world's more full of weeping than you can understand. Where the wave of moonlight glosses the dim gray sands with light, far off thy furthest rosses, we footed all the night, weaving olden dances, mingling hands and mingling glances. To and fro we leap and chase the frothy bubbles, while the world is full of troubles and anxious in its sleep. Come away, O human child, to the waters and the wild, with a fairy hand in hand, for the world's more full of weeping than you can understand. Where the wandering water gushes from the hills above Glencar, in pools among the rushes that scarce could bathe a star, we seek for slumbering trout. And whispering in their ears, give them unquiet dreams. Leaning softly out from ferns that drop their tears over the young streams. Come away, O human child, to the waters and the wild, with a fairy hand in hand, for the world's more full of weeping than you can understand. Away with us he's going, the solemn-eyed. He'll hear no more the lowing of the calves on the warm hillside, or the kettle on the hob sing peace into his breast, or see the brown mice bob round and round the oatmeal chest. For he comes, the human child, to the waters and the wild, with a fairy hand in hand, for the world's more full of weeping than he can understand. Hello, I'm Cynthia Bretson. I hope you enjoyed the presentation you just saw of William Butler Yeats's The Stolen Child. Just a little bit about me. I used to be an academic author for the University Press of Kentucky, focusing on books about film history. I wrote them with my late twin sister, Sarah. But over the past few years, I've been focusing more on literature and art history. So on to the discussion of Yeats. Yeats was probably one of the most popular and beloved poets of the late 19th and early 20th century. The Irish gentleman was only 21 when he wrote The Stolen Child. Quite amazing. I can't imagine being able to write something that affecting when I was 21. The poem reflected a theme that was quite popular in the day: fairies. Fairies were a form of escapism. They were a very welcome reprieve from the industrialism of the era that just kept inching in bit by bit. It was like a return to nature, something that would be quite welcome today as well, with the great technological advances of the day like AI. As an aside, I'm making these videos partly as a pushback against AI. No AI art, no AI poetry, nope, zero tolerance. Anyway, Yeats was especially interested in mysticism and magic and theosophy, especially the teachings of Emanuel Swedenborg. So it makes sense that the subjects of fairies fascinated him. Fairies were often considered to be angels caught between heaven and hell, or spirits that were caught on earth. Some even believed they were the souls of babies who had died before baptism. So they really fascinated Yeats and tapped into his love of magic. Jamie James of Latham's Quarterly noted that Yeats believed that magic gave him the power to write verses that would partake of the eternal "the proof is in his poetry" for the reader to judge. Now, for me as a reader, I do see a strong belief in magic in Yeats's work, especially his early work, like The Stolen Child. The Stolen Child seems like it's kind of a struggle with magic, though. A questioning of if it's based on good or ill will. It also seems to be a struggle between childhood and adulthood. For me, it brought up the feelings of nostalgia and uncertainty, and I think maybe Yeats was feeling that himself because he just reached adulthood, age 21, and if he followed conventions, he would have to leave the world of magic behind. But it's not so easy for him, and just like it's not easy for the child in the poem, fairies are like sirens, always singing a song. The beckoning fairies and the beckoning back to childhood, it's tempting and it seems like a soft place to stay. But the fairies are taking the child away without his full awareness. It's almost like he's under hypnosis, snatched out of his familiar world of everyday comforts. The fairies promise him better, but we as the reader, we don't get to see the child arrive in the fairy world, so he's just going off of the fairies' promises just like we are. We don't see how that life actually plays out. So the poem is called The Stolen Child, not The Found Child. Is he ever found? But more importantly, I was wondering, does he ever find himself and his own ideals? How do we keep the awe and innocence of childhood while not losing ourselves to it? How do we retain who we were while still moving forward and evolving, maturing? I'm not sure, because I haven't gotten to that point in my life yet. We might never, but poetry is supposed to make us ask these kind of questions. And Yeats definitely did that. He did find his own voice fully realized in his astounding masterpiece, The Second Coming, written in 1919. But he held fast to his own beliefs, his own voice, and that includes the so-called childish beliefs of magic. In 1892, Irish patriot John O'Leary kind of made fun of Yeats, who at age 27 still believed in magic. And Yeats responded, "It is surely absurd to hold me weak or otherwise because I choose to persist in a study which I have decided deliberately 4 and 5 years ago to make, next to my poetry, the most important pursuit of my life. The mystical life is at the center of all I do, and all I think and all I write." Good for him. Okay, now a word about the accompanying music, Gymnopédie by Erik Satie. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. It was composed in 1888, right around the time of The Stolen Child. The piece is named after an ancient Spartan festival in which youths danced and competed unarmed. It's like The Stolen Child, it evokes youth and being unencumbered. Satie was known for composing music that was the equivalent of impressionistic painting. It captured moments and moods rather than realism and order. I think Mr. Keating in the Dead Poets Society would approve of that. If I recall correctly in the movie, he tore out the entire section of realism in the poetry book that he was teaching the students. But that's beside the point. Finally, the paintings of John Anster Fitzgerald. He had such an affinity for fairy art that he earned the nickname Fairy Fitzgerald. Not sure how he felt about that. His art is certainly colorful, but there's disturbing elements to it. You'll see little goblins pretty much in every corner of his paintings, existing alongside fairies and the stuff of dreams. Now I'm going to end this presentation with a quote by Yeats, reflecting the bittersweet mood of The Stolen Child and the mood of many of his poems. He stated that, being Irish, he had an abiding sense of tragedy, which sustained him through temporary periods of joy. Please leave any thoughts on this video below. I'd love to hear what it brought up for you, what you liked best. Just, you can put any kind of comment. Anyway, thank you if you watched this far, and I'll see you next week.